Hello, it's Denise, Minty Green Mama, and today I would like to do a video that I have been wanting to do for quite some time now, and that is a depth year update. And I had wanted to do this in the middle of the year, like a midway kind of a thing. And I was doing a social media break at that point, and now it's like the end of August. So I don't know what happened between like June and the end of August, but that time just flew by. It was crazy. And here I am, and I've been really thinking about my plans that I had for depth year and how that kind of has gone for me. And I thought I'd put that out there because I've actually struggled a lot with what I thought I was going to do during depth year. And and I thought that by sharing that, if anyone else had planned on doing a depth year and that wasn't going exactly the way they wanted, it might help you to know that you're not the only person, obviously, because there's so many, but so many people were doing depth year this year. And I know several times I was tempted to just say, yeah, forget it. I'm just not doing it anymore. But instead, I've just adapted and changed kind of what depth year is for me. And I think this is almost like a trial depth year. And I'm hoping to do it again next year and actually have a better sense of what will work for me and how I can do it better. So it's actually been more of a learning process than I had a learning about myself process than more about learning about specific things that I had wanted to really like buckle down and study during depth year. So that is that. So when I originally started depth year, my intention was mostly to stop buying so many decks and use and appreciate the ones that I had. And the ones that I had that I've never really had a chance to use because I was getting in new decks and then I would work with one like a couple of times and set it aside to use a new one and so on and so on. And it wasn't helping me to connect deeply with any one deck that I had recently gotten. Now, ones that I had from a while ago that I had worked with for a long time, like I still had that connection, but these newer ones, like I was just getting them in so fast and I wasn't connecting with them. So that was one of my main depth year goals. The other one being to kind of narrow down my field of interest from so many things to maybe just a couple specific things that I could study more in depth. And on both counts, I haven't done very well. and I've changed a lot of my depth year plans. I was going to buy like one deck a month, and I had it all planned out, and I was going to plan out what I was going to do on paper so that I could stick with it better. And it just didn't work out that way. Like I tried really hard, and I actually went. I'm pretty proud of myself that I tried really hard. I went for many months without buying any new decks, and by many I mean maybe like three. Maybe over three. I got like one deck, which was really good for where I was coming from, and so I feel like I was gaining a little bit of traction, but then I ended up. It was my birthday, and I just got so many decks. And while I love all the decks that I picked out and I think they're amazing, and I super have that thing where I see somebody use a deck and I'm like, oh, but I would love that deck. And I'm sure that that's true, but I can't, I have only so much time and I have too many decks to really spread the love. And I'm not saying I have to use all my decks all the time, but there's some that just kind of get put in their little storage area and then they don't ever come out, and I kind of lose track of those. So after the first, I want to say, when was it? I want to say it was around May. I actually rehomed. I went through all my decks as part of my depth year. Like I'm trying to narrow down the stuff I have so I can appreciate it more. And one of the projects I did was I went through all my decks, and ones that I just didn't feel a connection to, or I didn't feel drawn to working with, like again, Not that they were bad decks of any kind, but I just hadn't worked with them. If I had gotten it and it just sat in the box, I had some I hadn't even unwrapped. Like they were just sitting there, and I was like, other people could enjoy this. And so I did a decluttering. I rehomed over 30 decks. At least I was writing them down, and then I kind of forgot. So it was really amazing, and I felt a lot better, having cleared all that out, and it was really nice. So I did then get a bunch more decks, but I feel like I know for a fact I still have fewer than when I started my depth year, and hopefully, although there's so many brilliant ones out there, like I want to see them all and hold them and look at them and see if I would really love them. Especially some of the really expensive ones, like before I buy them, and that's not always possible. So then sometimes I just don't buy them because it was really expensive. And then later I'm like, I wish I would have gotten that deck. And then that leads me the next time to be like, oh, I should probably get it because I might want it later, if I didn't buy it, like if I didn't back it on Kickstarter, or if it was like a limited edition, those kind of things drive me crazy because, fear of missing out, FOMO and all that, because I don't want to miss out on it. But, they're kind of, it's an investment. I feel like I've been investing a little bit more than I should in my tarot deck collection. So I still feel, as far as that aspect of my depth year, I'm not buying quite so many decks. I've still been buying decks, but I do feel that I have fewer decks than when I started, and I'm comfortable with that. And so and I have mostly decks now, either that have a sentimental value for some reason, even if I don't connect to them, or that I really enjoy working with, or I plan on really working with in the future. So that's where I am right now, and I'm pretty happy with the decks that are still in my collection. There were several decks that I was going to rehome and then ended up not being rehomed, and so I learned a little bit through that process as well. Some decks that stuck around that I hadn't planned on, and so I almost feel like a special connection with those, like because I was going to rehome them, and for whatever reason they're still here, and now I'm like, oh well, they're still here, so maybe they're here for a reason. And I've made some new tarot deck friends like that. So that was that part of depth year. As far as narrowing down my studies, I still there's still so many things. Like I just feel like there's so many things I want to do, and so I start all these different projects, but I never really get to the end of the projects because there's so many that I want to do that I start another one. I don't know, like I had the same issue when I was knitting. I used to knit all the time, and I would start, especially socks, and I would start like socks, and I would do like one sock and be like, great, and I'd start the other one, and then be like, but I really want to do that project over there. So I have like a whole bin full of unfinished projects. I did finish some, so that's something, but I feel like that's not just a tarot related issue. That's like a personality thing that I'm still working on. And as far as narrowing down my things that I want to study, I feel like I've been doing a lot of work on that this last couple of months. I feel like there's going to be a lot of like shadow work to do too, but by focusing on that, by realizing that it is an issue, and by asking myself some questions like, well, what would I like to know a lot about? What would I really like to be like really good at, instead of just knowing a little bit about a bunch of things? Like, what's one thing I would really like to feel accomplished in, or one area, something I'd like to know a lot about. That's been helping me stay focused. One other thing I've been doing more lately is more concentrated work with crystals, and especially for blue ones for like mental clarity. Some of the ones that I don't know if everybody is cup of tea working with crystals, but ones that have helped me is Dumortierite for organizational abilities and mental clarity and self-discipline. This one's been really really nice. I'm actually going to put this in in a wrap so that I can carry it with me. I do like to hold them, but then I also like to wear them. So this one's going to end up as a necklace. And then Lapis Lazuli for clarity and stress management. So this is a nice little leafy piece that I have. I have several pieces of that stone. I just really, really like that one. And then Sodalite. This is an interesting piece that's kind of like splotchy, but it just is a really good hand size one. And so I've been working with this for clarity and also self-acceptance. This is good for self-acceptance. So I think that's a big part of when I started my depth year. I had plans for plans for myself for my year. And what I ended up realizing was that instead of accepting the amount of time that I had and the things that aspects of my personality that might make it difficult to sit down and do depth year, like instead of accepting those and working with those, I was kind of working at odds with myself, like trying to give myself too much to do. So not accepting my time constraints, and also making up a study plan for, like, if I was a super, incredibly focused individual with no other, I need my own personal space that's not just studying, but just like relaxing and being, like meditation, or just, being able to sit there and just not have to focus on something. Like, I need that personal time, and not accepting that when I was making my plans, I think that kind of really didn't help me at all either. So I've been working with this stone a lot for that, and especially because I do enjoy meditation when I have time, when I'm not exhausted, which there's some weeks where I'm just so exhausted, if I sat down and closed my eyes, I'd fall asleep, and I have, like, sitting on the sofa before, because when you have little kids, like, sometimes you're up all night with somebody for it's just, you never know. So when I do have time for meditation, I find this is a really beneficial stone for that. And blue stones and the color blue, like, I'm working with a lot for focus and mental clarity. And I feel like that is, I can't rely on crystals to completely change my mindset, but I feel like just the intention of setting that intention while I work with those has really helped keep me a little bit more on track. I feel like where I am in August of 2019 is in a lot better position of where I was in January 2019. I feel like as someone that hasn't done really well with the plans I set for depth year, I still feel like setting just the action of setting those plans and doing my best to try to make it work, even despite the obstacles that I might have caused myself and other things that have happened. I feel like that has helped me to grow as a person, if that doesn't sound too cliche and corny, but really, I feel like it really helped me to grow as a person, as an individual, and I know a lot more about myself, aspects of myself that I wasn't really consciously aware of how I learn, of how I, behave, my personality, like all of that. Like, I understand a lot better now, and I am able to work with that. I'm like working with myself, like accepting those personality flaws, as you might call them, or not, depending on how you look at it, but accepting that about myself and then working with that, I feel has been like the greatest lesson of my depth year. So I'm not I'm not like saving tons of money on tarot decks, I'm not even gonna talk about crystals, because that wasn't really on my radar when I started depth year, and then I kind of had a couple of months where I was like, crystals, I need them all, and so that's a whole nother thing. But I haven't done that, and I haven't really buckled down and studied only a couple things, but by kind of keeping that in the back of my mind that those were my goals, I've really worked pretty well, like in depth with a couple of decks. I actually have I'm obsessed with disc bound journals and stuff, and so the planners have actually helped me a lot. And I actually went through and did I haven't filled all the cards in, but I've done like a whole book on the Akashic Tarot, and like a journal study book, which I have never managed to even put together a whole book before. I mean, I've done tarot journaling, you know, but an entire book for like one deck, like that's more than I've ever done before, like in depth with a single deck. So I feel like that's, and oddly enough, it was Akashic Tarot, which is, it's just wild. That deck is just, it's just sticking around. That was going to go get rehomed, and then it just was like, no, you have to keep me. So there it is. But I just feel like I've been doing a lot better. So that has been my experience with depth year. Yeah. And actually, like I said, I feel like I'm going to do another depth year next year, because and I might not focus so much on the purchasing, although, you know, I don't want to go overboard and go crazy, which is so easy to do with decks because I feel like they come out like in bunches, you know, like a whole bunch will come out like in October or something. You know, there's just, it seems like there's just these times where like all sorts of new stuff is coming out, and it's hard to feel like left out of all the excitement and the fun, because for me, getting a new deck is just like fun and exciting. It's like an exploration, it's an adventure, you know, and I don't want to be left behind on the adventure, but I just need to recognize like I am on my own adventure, and it doesn't necessarily involve like having to own all the decks. And as far as picking out a couple of topics, like I'm getting really close to having being able to stick with a couple of things for a while. And I'm not going to jinx it by saying anything exactly just yet, but I've been doing really well with sticking to some certain topics for study. And so I feel like that instead of, this is like, so I'm considering 2019 my preparation depth year. This was my preparation year for my actual depth year, which will be in 2020, because this was such a growing experience for me, and I already have such broad interests. I feel like I don't need to broaden my interests. Like I really need to keep trying to dial it back a little bit because I want to be like adept at some topics. So that is my depth year plan. And I rambled on for almost 20 minutes. So that is how I'm doing. I'd love to hear if you were doing depth year, and I know a lot of people were. I would love to hear in the comments like how you're doing on your depth year. And if you plan on doing another depth year, or if you're going to wait a while. All right. I will talk to you later. I hope you're having a wonderful week. Bye.